Okay, Java Project 1. So we have a fortune teller here that will take in 3 inputs from the user and tell them what will happen to them in the future. And it will also show them the expressions of what will happen to them in the future. So something like in the future they might be angry, and we'll show a little like emoji from keyboard or keyboard inputs. And we'll also tell them what the expression of that will be. So they might be angry, and then we'll see like a little emoji of them being angry in the future. So to start off, we import the java.util.scanner so that we can get some input from the user. So we define a scanner called keyboard, and we new scanner system.in so that we can get input from them. The first thing we also do is also print out just a small little sentence in the top telling them that I will predict your future. And then our first input here is an integer called num1, and we ask the user to please enter an integer from 1 through 10, 1 through 10 being our valid range for their input, for their first input. If they put anything outside of that, then we're going to make it, we're going to give them back an error. Our second input is a character, just called character, or char character, and it's going to receive a letter from the user, and the valid range for this letter is A through I, and will also account for lowercase a through I. And our third input and final input is another integer, num2 this time, and its valid range would be from 1 through 11. And then we define a boolean called isValidInput, and we set that equal to true, just for now. This is going to allow the user to see their answers, and if this boolean becomes false later, then we're going to get an error message and not give back any answers for their future. Next, we initialize some empty strings that we're going to define from the inputs later on. The first two being expression and expression meaning. So this is for the expressions in the future. So like angry, expression would be the little emoji of the angry face. The expression meaning being the word angry. We'll also get some animal inputs from the user. Animal expression being the emoji for the animal, the animal name being the name of the animal. And our third pair of empty strings is object expression and object name. This is because our third input will receive, will show an object like a birthday hat or an airplane, and we'll have an emoji of an airplane or emoji of a birthday hat, and then we'll have the name of that object. So there's a lot of selection statements here. So this first whole sequence of if statements all represent the scenarios where the scenarios that the user can obtain with their first integer input. So the first thing we check is if that number that the user input at first was within 1 through 10. Is it within that valid range that we mentioned earlier? If so, then we're going to execute all these if statements. If it's not, then we're going to right away say that their isValidInput is false, and they're going to get an error. So let's say that it was within the valid range, then we'll check is that input equal to 1, and if it is, then their expression is going to be this tongue-in-cheek emoji. It means tongue-in-cheek. If it's not 1, then we'll check is it 2. If so, then their expression meaning will be tongue-tied, and this is the emoji for tongue-tied. If it's not 2, then we'll check if it's 3. If it's not 3, 4, and so on. And numbers 1 through 10 all have their own expression and expression meaning. Like for 8 being bored, and this is the emoji for bored. 10 being shy, and this is the emoji for being shy. So our second sequence of selection statements is represents the scenarios that the user can obtain with their second integer input, num2. So now we check this one's valid range. Is it within 1 through 11? The first one was 1 through 10. This one is 1 through 11 because we have an extra scenario in this one. So if it's not within 1 through 11, it's like they put in something like 14. That's not within this range, so we're going to go straight down here and say that their is valid input is false, so that we're going to get an error. But if it wasn't, if it is within our valid range, then we'll check, is it equal to 1? If it is, then their animal will be a bird, and this is the emoji for the bird. We check, is it not? If it's not 1, then we'll check if it's 2. If it's not 2, then 3, so on. And then our third sequence of selection statements represents all the scenarios that the user can obtain with their character A through, let's just say A through I. So we only check letters from A through I. So if the character the user inputted was A, capital A, or lowercase a, then we'll say that their object name was a birthday hat, and then we'll show a little emoji of a birthday hat. If they didn't put in A or lowercase a, then we check if they put in uppercase B or lowercase b. That way, then they will get a bed instead, an emoji for a bed. If it's not lowercase b or capital B, then we'll check if it's lowercase c or capital C. If it's not that, then check lowercase d, uppercase d, so on. Of course, if they don't put a letter within A through I or lowercase a through I, then we are going to right away say that their is valid input is false. So, this last selection statement checks if their is valid input was true. Now we only set it to false if they put in something in their inputs outside their valid range. Now this is going to remain true as long as they don't do that. So if it's true, if is valid input is true, then we're going to print out this little quirky statement saying, in the future I see, and their first expression is going to show, so something like tongue-in-cheek, plus, and then it'll show the expression for an object, so like a birthday hat, and then animal expression, something like pig. And this first line only shows the emojis for those. The second line says, you will be, and then expression meaning, being something like angry or shy or alarmed from the first input. You will be, let's say, angry because you just purchased a brand new, and then this is where we show the object name, something like birthday hat, or something like airplane. And then the last line says, however, I also foresee that you will be attacked by an animal name. Beware. And the animal name being something like a mouse, the dog, cat, bird. Something that they could have gotten from this whole selection statement sequence. However, if there is valid input was not true, then we're not going to execute this block of code. We'll go to this else statement here and say, oops, there was an error in one of your inputs. Here's your money back. Try again. And then they'll have to run the program again. So let's do some inputs.